The United Nations has completed its investigation into 19 staff members of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, who Israel accused of being involved in the October 7th attack. They found no or insufficient evidence to support the allegations against 10 of its staff. They found evidence that 9 may have been involved and have terminated their employment. UNRWA employs around 13,000 people. Gabriel Elizondo joins us now from UNHQ with the very latest on this. In clarity is what the international community wanted. Will these findings close the chapter on this particular episode, Gabriel?
Listen, I think so, because after these allegations were made by Israel in late January, more than 12 countries suspended funding to UNRWA. That was a critical lifeline for UNRWA to give aid to Palestinians in Gaza that needed it the most. So since then, all but one country has resumed funding again to UNRWA. The only one that hasn't is the United States. And I doubt that these findings are going to change anything in terms of countries wanting to reevaluate that. Overwhelmingly, the international community has come out and said in the last few weeks and months that they need to support UNRWA for the work that it is doing in Gaza and elsewhere. And so I think that this report will certainly be taken in various different ways, but I think that what you're going to see is countries accepting the findings as best as they can and saying, let's put this situation behind us and move forward.
It would be nice to put the situation behind us. I'm sure that's what the UN would like, but is that what the UN will get?
Well, listen, I mean, you can split these numbers however you want here, but the bottom line is the facts that the UN came out with were 10 individuals but there was no evidence linking them to being part of any attacks on October 7th. Now, there were 9, and this is key, that may have been a part of the October 7th attacks, according to the internal UN review that has been going on for more than 6 months now. Now, the Secretary General's spokesperson was asked about this. He said, were they part of it or maybe part of it? And he said, listen, we did an investigation. We think there might be enough evidence to link them to perhaps partaking in the October 7th attacks, and so that's why they're being fired. But it's important to point out that the evidence that Israel says they have linking these individuals was never really released to UN investigators. It's still in the hands of the Israelis. So the Israelis basically tell the UN, your people have been involved in this, now you go investigate and try to find out for yourself. And that's what the UN has basically been trying to do. In summary here, though, this has certainly been a traumatic situation for the UN. Whenever staff members are accused of wrongdoing or taking part in a violent act like this, it leads to ramifications, whether it's justified or not. But it's also important to point out that more than 200 UNRWA staff have been killed since October 7th due to Israeli bombardment of Gaza. So I think the message from the UN, and particularly from the Secretary General, irregardless of this report, is going to be a ceasefire, and a ceasefire now, something that he's been calling for months now.
Gabriel Elizondo there at UNHQ. Thanks, Gabriel. Let's join Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, who joins us now via Skype from Paris. Hi, Marwan. UNRWA not completely exonerated, but where do you see the position of the agency now sort of moving forward? And with the information that Israel says it still has being, you might say, waved in the air or rattled like a sabre?
I disagree with the premise of your questions. Exonerated? It shouldn't have been on the stand in the first place. When did you ever hear of an organization, an institution, an international one, working in a war zone with 30,000 staff when 9 of them were suspected of something? How does that put the entire organization on the stand? How does that make the organization accountable for all the troubles of the Middle East? How does that make the organization that is known for its transparency and accountability become the perpetrator of whatever, when most of the parties, at least the Israelis in this sense, are an institution of criminality, are carrying war crimes, are carrying genocide in Gaza, are killing UNRWA staff, I don't think that UNRWA needed to be exonerated at all. And those who accused it did not mean for it to be exonerated, because the entire accusations, the entire list of accusations was all cooked up. It's shameless. It's totally shameless. And it's not unexpected of Israel to do that. Israel-Hezbollah is meant to lie. That's what they do. Why? Because that's the nature of Israeli-Hezbollah. It's to lie. And it lied about UNRWA, and it implicated it because it hates UNRWA, and it doesn't want a UN agency to tackle the question of refugee. The question is, why did these Western powers follow Israel like sheep? Like sheep. They did not look into those accusations. They did not look into these shameful Wall Street Journal report and New York Times report that were not substantiated. That was another dark day for journalism, just like it was a dark day for Western democracies that claim to be democracies, while accepting the fact that an institution of 30,000 employees could not potentially, we don't even know yet, could have 9 of its staff run rogue, let's say.
And of course, what we are seeing, again, still though, even while I ask these questions to get an elicit a response from you that our viewers would understand as well, Marwan, is the fact that the countries that did defund UNRWA have slowly, one by one, gone back to funding it again, because they haven't been offered any evidence, they haven't been offered anything by Israel, and again, they have a position where their own respective publics are questioning their position. And public opinion has been a great deal, a factor in the way that countries have had to start refunding, funding UNRWA again. Public pressure.
Look, we have to put few concepts to rest when we address issues like that relating to the United Nations. A few Western powers and their clients are not the international community. That's not the international community. A few Western powers devising a rules-based system that basically in some of its facets contradicts international law is not the international community. Few Western powers that appease a genocidal Israel are not the international community. Few Western powers that overnight turned off the assistance to a viable, indispensable UN agency on the basis of false reports and Hezbollah Israeli propaganda, they are not the international community. The international community did not look at UNRWA and said, oh my God, this is terrible, let's look into that. Let's put it on the trial. Let's investigate it. That's not what happened. What happened is the Secretary General of the United Nations decided under pressure from important donors, and they happen to be Western powers, to look into those issues. The issue is not that there are 9 people that may have been involved in the October 7th. The issue, why aren't they 90? Why aren't they 900? They are part and parcel of the 2+ million people living in an open prison called Gaza. Their family members were killed. Their family members were displaced. Their family members were put in prison. Their family members could not find work or even food. So the idea that 9 out of 13,000 or 9 out of 30,000 were found to have maybe been involved in whatever capacity, we don't know, in October 7, that is not an issue concerning UNRWA as a UN agency. And certainly, once again, those who went along Israel's false, shameless, shameful accusations against UN agency, they're the ones who should be put on the stand. They're the ones who should be shameful. They're the ones who should be investigated. The Israeli government is one of today, it's one of, certainly, I mean, it's almost consensus, including in the Western public opinion, is a criminal enterprise. But Western society, Western countries, Western governments continue to provide aid to it. They don't ask themselves what the Israeli army has done in Gaza. The Israeli army is far more dangerous than UNRWA. Don't we all agree?
Indeed. Let's see what people do agree and don't agree on in the days ahead. But for the moment, Marwan Bishara, thanks for joining us from Paris.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.